The day the new queen took the throne, the kingdom forgot how to breathe. It wasn't announced in any official decree. No bell rang to warn the people. No prophet cried out from the streets. And yet everyone felt it. A heaviness settled over the city like storm clouds that refused to move, pressing down on rooftops, marketplaces, and hearts alike. The palace gates stood wide open, but no one rushed forward. People gathered instead at a careful distance, whispering to one another as though the air itself might be listening. "She doesn't smile," someone murmured. "They say she watched her own coronation without blinking. My cousin works in the palace. He says the servants won't even meet her eyes." Fear spread faster than truth ever could. The banners were raised high, stitched in royal gold and deep midnight blue, but they fluttered without joy. The musicians played perfectly, too perfectly, each note sharp, controlled, and cold. No laughter spilled into the streets. No children ran through the crowd. Parents held them close, as if even curiosity had become dangerous, because this queen was not like the ones before. She did not wave from the balcony. She did not bow her head in gratitude. She did not pretend. When she stepped forward, silence followed her like a shadow. Her crown sat heavy against dark hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. Her robes were elegant but severe. No flowing silks, no soft colors. Only structure, only order, only restraint. And when she spoke, her voice carried without effort. "I accept the crown." That was all. No speech about unity. No promise of peace. No lie wrapped in velvet words. Just 3 sentences that echoed through the square, and lodged themselves deep inside the people who heard them. From that moment on, the kingdom decided something together, without discussion. This woman was dangerous. Inside the palace walls, the fear grew sharper. Guards doubled their patrols. Doors that once remained open were quietly shut. Servants learned to walk faster, speak softer, and vanish when summoned. Even seasoned generals, men who had survived wars and watched cities burn, stood straighter when the queen entered the room. She noticed everything. The way a hand trembled before pouring wine. The pause before someone spoke the truth. The lies people told themselves before they ever spoke aloud. She did not punish mistakes often, but when she did, the consequences were precise and unforgettable. By the end of the first week, the court no longer debated her orders. They obeyed. And yet, high above the marble halls and echoing chambers, a young boy sat on the palace steps, swinging his legs and watching it all unfold. The prince was too small for his formal tunic, its sleeves bunching at his wrists. His shoes pinched his toes. His hair refused to stay combed, no matter how many times servants tried. He had been told to stay quiet, to stay still, to stay out of the way. But the prince had always been better at watching than obeying. He watched the way people flinched when the queen passed. He watched how laughter stopped mid-sentence. He watched how grown men who towered over him, lowered their eyes like scolded children. And he didn't understand. She didn't shout. She didn't strike. She didn't rage. She simply existed. From where he sat, the queen didn't look terrifying. She looked tired. Her shoulders never relaxed. Her hands were always clenched, as if holding something invisible together. When she thought no one was watching, her gaze drifted, not toward the throne but beyond the palace windows, toward a city that refused to trust her. The prince tilted his head, confused. Why was everyone so afraid of someone who looked like she hadn't slept in years? That night, as the city settled into uneasy rest, the palace remained awake. Candles burned late into the corridors. Papers stacked higher on desks. Messengers came and went with faces drawn tight by worry. The queen worked through it all without complaint, reviewing accounts, reading reports of famine in the east and unrest in the south. The kingdom was not at peace. It was barely holding together, and she knew it. She knew that mercy would be mistaken for weakness. She knew that softness would invite collapse. She knew that if she hesitated, even once, Everything her predecessors had ignored would finally break. So she ruled with discipline, with distance, with fear. Because fear at least worked. The prince, however, had never learned to be afraid the way adults did. Fear to him was simple. You feared falling. You feared the dark. You feared losing the people you loved. But how could you fear someone who had never harmed you? Late that evening, the prince wandered into a corridor he wasn't supposed to be in. Guards noticed but didn't stop him. He was small, harmless, royal. Rules bent around him the way they always had. At the end of the hall, he saw her. The queen stood alone at a tall window, candlelight flickering across her face. The crown lay on a nearby table, set aside like a burden too heavy to carry all the time. For a moment she looked different. Not powerful, not feared, just human. The prince hesitated. He remembered the whispers, the warnings, the way servants stiffened whenever she appeared. Then he remembered something else. His father's voice, long gone now, steady and warm. Courage isn't about being loud, his father had once told him. It's about not letting fear decide who you are. So the prince did something no one else in the palace dared to do. He walked toward her. The sound of his small footsteps echoed against the stone floor. The queen turned. Her expression hardened instantly, walls snapping back into place. "You should not be here," she said. Her voice was calm, but sharp enough to send servants fleeing. The prince swallowed, heart pounding. Still he didn't step back. "I was watching the coronation," he said. Everyone looked scared. She studied him closely now, measuring, assessing, as if deciding whether this interruption was a threat. "And you?" she asked. The prince thought about it, about the silence, about the fear, about the loneliness he saw in her eyes. Then he lifted his chin and answered honestly, "I wasn't." The queen froze, not in anger, but in surprise. And in that moment, before the guards could intervene, before the court could interfere, before the world remembered its fear, something quiet and dangerous was born. Not rebellion, not defiance, but the simplest, bravest thing of all. A child who refused to be afraid. And a queen who, for the first time since taking the crown, didn't know what to do with that. By morning, the palace had already decided what the prince's courage meant. Meant danger. Servants whispered behind closed doors, voices sharp with worry. Guards exchanged glances whenever the boy passed. Advisors spoke in hushed urgency, convinced the queen's patience, whatever little of it she possessed, had surely been tested the night before. "Children repeat what they hear," one minister warned. "And sometimes," another added quietly, "they disappear for it." But the prince woke unaware of any of this. He dressed slowly, struggling with buttons too small for his fingers. His mind still stuck on the way the queen had looked at him. Less like a ruler, more like someone startled awake from a long, lonely dream. She hadn't punished him. She hadn't raised her voice. She had simply stared, as though he'd asked a question no one else had ever thought to ask. That frightened the adults far more than anger ever could. The council chamber filled before the sun reached its highest point. Long tables stretched across polished stone floors, crowded with men and women who had survived 3 rulers and countless wars by learning when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. The queen sat at the head of the table, back straight, expression unreadable. The crown rested upon her head again. Across the room, the prince was led to a seat meant for ceremony, not conversation. His feet dangled above the floor, shoes swinging gently as he listened. Reports began at once. Grain shortages in the north, tax resistance in the outer villages, border skirmishes no one wanted to call war. Each problem landed heavily on the table, and each solution was the same. Increase pressure, enforce order, crush resistance quickly. Heads nodded in agreement, fear disguised as loyalty. The prince shifted in his seat. Something about the words felt wrong, heavy, unfair. He thought about the people he'd seen beyond the palace walls. Farmers with cracked hands, children chasing each other through dust, mothers counting coins twice before buying bread. He raised his hand. A ripple of panic moved through the room. The queen didn't acknowledge him at first. She continued listening as if nothing had happened. The prince raised his hand higher. Finally, she turned her gaze toward him. "Yes," she said. The single word felt like a test. The prince swallowed. "If they don't have grain," he asked slowly, "how are they supposed to pay more taxes?" The chamber went silent. No coughing, no shuffling, no breathing. A minister's face drained of color. The question wasn't rebellious. It wasn't disrespectful. It was logical. And logic was far more dangerous. The queen leaned back in her chair. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she gestured for the prince to stand. Every instinct in the room screamed that this was a mistake. But the boy stood anyway. "Tell me," the queen said, her voice level, "what happens when a kingdom runs out of coin?" The prince frowned, thinking hard. "Things stop working," he said. "People leave. Soldiers don't get paid. And when soldiers are not paid," she pressed, "they stop protecting people," he answered quietly. She nodded once. "Fear keeps them loyal," she said. "Fear keeps borders intact. Fear keeps food moving." The prince hesitated. "But fear also makes people hide things," he said. "Like grain. Or hope." A sharp inhale swept through the council. The queen's eyes narrowed. Not in anger but focus. "And what would you replace fear with?" she asked. The prince looked around the room. At the stiff shoulders. The bowed heads. The silence. "Trust," he said. The word landed badly. Trust was fragile. Trust was slow. Trust did not stop armies. Or so the ministers believed. The queen dismissed the council early that day. Not because she agreed with the prince, but because for the first time in years, someone had forced her to explain herself. And explanations had consequences. By afternoon, rumors spread faster than truth. The prince challenged her. "She'll silence him. She can't allow weakness." The palace felt tighter, colder. Guards shadowed the boy more closely now. Servants avoided his eyes, afraid of being associated with whatever punishment might come. But the queen did not summon him. Not that day. Not the next. Instead, she changed something small and terrifying. She began asking questions. When reports were delivered, she asked why. When taxes were enforced, she demanded numbers. When punishments were recommended, she paused. The court noticed immediately. Fear deepened. A ruler who questioned her own methods was unpredictable. And unpredictability was dangerous. 3 days later, the prince was summoned. This time, no one tried to stop him. He was led through winding halls into a private chamber rarely used. A room with no throne, no banners, no guards standing at attention. Just a table, 2 chairs, and the queen waiting. She did not rise when he entered. "Sit," she said. He did. For a moment they said nothing. Then she spoke. "Do you know why everyone here is afraid of me?" The prince considered the question carefully. "Because you don't pretend," he said. Her brow furrowed. "Explain." "They're used to rulers who smile while things fall apart," he said. "You don't smile." The queen laughed once, short, bitter. "Smiles do not stop starvation." "No," the prince agreed. "But they remind people they matter." Silence stretched between them. Then the queen leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "Fear," she said quietly, "is faster than hope. It works when time runs out." The prince met her gaze. "But hope lasts longer," he said. Something in her expression flickered. Not warmth. Not softness. Recognition. That night, the queen stared at maps long after the candles burned low. She thought about the boy's question. Not the challenge, but the assumption behind it. That people might respond to being trusted. That strength did not always require cruelty. That ruling alone was not the same as ruling well. She had chosen fear because it was efficient. But efficiency had never brought loyalty. Only obedience. And obedience, she realized too late, was brittle. The next morning an order was issued. Not a decree. Not a punishment. An invitation. Village leaders from the north were summoned, not to be threatened but to speak. The court was stunned. The prince heard the news from a servant who whispered it like a secret miracle. He smiled. High above the council chamber, the queen stood at the window once more. But this time she was not alone. She was haunted by a child's question, and the dangerous idea that maybe, just maybe, fear was not the only way to rule a kingdom. The palace changed quietly, not in ways that could be announced or celebrated, but in the pauses between words, in the hesitation before orders were given, in the way people began to look at the queen when they thought she wasn't watching. Meetings ran longer now. Decisions came slower. And fear, once sharp and absolute, began to fray at the edges. The court did not know what to do with that. Some ministers grew hopeful. Others grew anxious. Few grew angry, because fear had protected them once. Fear had kept them safe beneath rulers who demanded obedience and asked nothing of their conscience. And now fear was weakening, all because of a child who refused to be afraid. The prince noticed the changes before anyone else. He noticed how messengers no longer flinched as badly when approaching the throne, how guards relaxed their grip on spear shafts, how servants lingered just a moment longer in the queen's presence, as if expecting something else to happen. He noticed the queen too. Her shoulders still carried the weight of the kingdom, but now, when she thought no one was looking, her hands loosened. Her gaze lingered on maps not as a general might, but as someone searching for answers between borders and inked lines. The prince watched from doorways and staircases, always quiet, always observing. And slowly, he understood something no one else did. The queen wasn't cruel. She was afraid. It surprised him when he realized it. Because adults weren't supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to know what to do. They were supposed to protect everyone else from fear. But the queen carried hers differently. She carried it like a shield, like armor welded too tightly to remove. One evening, the prince found her in the western gallery. The room was tall and narrow, lined with windows that faced the city. At this hour, the streets below glowed with lantern light, warm, flickering, alive. The queen stood there without her crown. She hadn't noticed him yet. The prince hesitated. He had been warned, gently but firmly, not to disturb the queen anymore. That curiosity was dangerous. That courage had limits. But the prince had also learned something else. Fear only worked when everyone agreed to it. So he walked forward. His footsteps echoed softly across the marble floor. He turned. For a moment, her expression hardened out of habit, then softened when she saw who it was. "You walk quietly," she said. "You stand very still," the prince replied. A corner of her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough to feel like one. They stood side by side at the window, looking out at the city. "Do you know why I stand here?" the queen asked. The prince shook his head. "Because the city looks smaller from up here," she said. "Less overwhelming." The prince peered down. "I think it looks bigger," he said. "There are a lot of people." She glanced at him. "That," she said quietly, "is the problem." She told him things that night she had never said aloud. About inheriting a kingdom already cracking at the seams. About advisors who lied to protect themselves. About promises made to the dying king, to hold the realm together at any cost. "They said kindness would ruin me," she admitted. "That hesitation would destroy us." The prince listened without interrupting. "Did it?" he asked eventually. She was silent for a long time. "No," she said. "But it made me alone." The words hung heavy between them. The prince thought of how fear had filled the palace like fog. Thick, cold, suffocating. "How long have you been alone?" he asked. The queen did not answer right away. "Longer than you've been alive," she said finally. In the days that followed, the prince noticed something else. The queen began to seek him out. Not openly, not formally, just quietly. She asked his opinion on small things. Which petition should be heard first? Which road seemed more dangerous on the map? whether people would rather be punished or understood. Each question startled her advisors. A ruler who asked a child for counsel was a ruler losing control, or so they believed. One afternoon, a caravan arrived from the eastern plains. Refugees, thin, exhausted, afraid. They had fled drought and raiders, arriving at the gates with nothing but stories and desperation. The council's recommendation was immediate. Turn them away. We cannot feed our own, a minister argued. If we open the gates, more will follow. The queen listened. Then she looked at the prince. What would you do? She asked. The room tensed. The prince stepped forward. I'd let them in, he said. Murmurs erupted. And when food runs out? The queen asked. The prince met her eyes. Then we'll know who really belongs to the kingdom, he said. The ones who share. Silence fell again. The queen dismissed the council. That night the gates opened. The backlash was immediate. Whispers turned sharp. Loyalty fractured. Fear returned, but this time it pointed inward. Some accused the queen of weakness, others of manipulation. A few began speaking of rebellion. The prince overheard it all. He found the queen standing alone once more, staring at reports she already knew by heart. They're angry, he said. Yes, she replied. Are you scared? He asked. She considered the question. Not of them, she said. Of being wrong. The prince nodded. My father said being wrong is part of being brave, he said. The queen closed her eyes. For the first time since taking the crown, she allowed herself to believe him. Late that night, long after the palace slept, the queen made a decision. Not written in law, not carved in stone, but spoken aloud, softly, into the quiet. I will not rule alone. The words felt dangerous and freeing. The prince returned to his chamber unaware of how much he had changed the world around him. He only knew this, that the queen no longer stood like a statue at the window. She leaned now, toward the city, toward its people, toward something that looked a lot like hope. And hope, he was beginning to understand, was far more frightening than fear, because fear demanded obedience, but hope demanded faith. And faith, once awakened, could never be controlled again. Fear does not disappear when challenged. Wait. It coils itself into corners and whispers into the ears of those who feel they are losing control. And in the kingdom, there were many who had built their power on fear. Men who mistook obedience for loyalty and silence for peace. They watched the gates open to refugees. They watched the queen hesitate before punishments. They watched her listen. And they decided she had gone too far. It began with rumors. That the queen had been bewitched. That the prince was a puppet. That kindness was weakness. And weakness would cost lives. The word spread through taverns and market stalls, through barracks and council halls, growing sharper each time they were repeated. By the time the first torch was lit, the story had already been written. The queen was no longer feared. She was blamed. The prince sensed it before anyone told him. The palace felt different again. Not softer this time, but brittle. Guards whispered among themselves. Messengers ran instead of walked. The air buzzed with a restless energy that made his chest feel tight. He asked a servant what was wrong. The servant looked away. Go to your chambers, she said. And stay there. That was when the prince knew something terrible was coming. At dawn, the city erupted. It began with shouting, angry, directionless, afraid. Then came the pounding at the gates, the clash of metal, the roar of a crowd that had decided fear needed a target. From the palace balcony, smoke curled upward like a warning. The queen stood armored, crown set firmly upon her head once more. Her posture was steady, her face calm, but her eyes betrayed her. She had known this would happen. Every ruler who softened learned the same lesson. Fear never forgave. Prepare the guards, a general urged. We can end this quickly. The queen watched the crowd gather below. Women, men, children. Not enemies, people. No, she said. The word landed heavily. They will breach the gates, the general warned. And then I will meet them, the queen replied. Shock rippled through the chamber. Before anyone could stop him, the prince ran forward. No, he said. You won't. The room froze. The queen turned sharply. You must go, she told him. This is not for you. He shook his head, heart pounding. It is, he said. Because they're afraid. Her expression tightened. So are you, she said softly. The prince swallowed. Yes, he admitted. But I won't hide. The gates shuddered, would crack. Torches flared brighter as the crowd surged forward. The queen moved toward the balcony. The prince followed. Guards reached for him, but hesitated. No one knew what to do with a child who refused to obey fear. The balcony doors burst open. Heat and noise flooded the space. The crowd below roared, their anger feeding itself. The queen stepped forward. Boos erupted. Curses flew. Stones struck the palace walls. And then, before anyone could stop him, the prince climbed onto the railing. Gasps echoed behind him. The queen's breath caught. Come down, she whispered urgently. He didn't. He looked out at the sea of faces. Faces twisted by fear, by hunger, by loss. And he shouted, Stop! The word cut through the chaos like a blade. Not because it was loud, but because it was wrong. Children were not supposed to shout at angry crowds. The noise faltered, just enough. She is not your monster, the prince cried, voice shaking but strong. She is trying to hold us together. Laughter broke out, angry laughter. She taxes us. She lets strangers in. She's destroying us. The prince clenched his fists. She's doing what she thinks will save us, he shouted back. And she's doing it alone. Silence spread, uneven, uncertain. The queen stepped forward. Enough, she said. But the prince raised his hand. Please, he said to the crowd. Look at her. They did. Really looked. Not at a tyrant, but at a woman standing behind a trembling child who refused to step aside. A stone flew. Time slowed. The queen lunged forward, but the prince didn't move. The stone clattered harmlessly against the railing, and something broke. Not the balcony, the crowd. Fear faltered, because fear demanded distance. And here was a child standing close enough to be hurt, close enough to be real. The torches lowered, voices quieted. One by one people stepped back. Someone shouted, He's just a boy. The prince nodded. Yes, he said. And I'm not afraid. The words echoed, not as defiance, but as a mirror. The first torch fell. Then another. Then another. The crowd began to disperse, not satisfied, not healed, but no longer burning. The rebellion ended not with blood, but with exhaustion, with shame, with uncertainty. The queen pulled the prince into her arms the moment the gates were secured. Her hands shook. You should never have done that, she said, voice breaking. I know, he replied softly. But someone had to. She held him tighter. For the first time the crown felt lighter. That night the palace stood intact, but changed forever. The people had seen something they could not unsee. A ruler who did not hide behind soldiers. A child who stood between fear and fire. And fear, once exposed, had lost its sharpest edge. Because fear could survive cruelty, but it could not survive courage. And courage, once witnessed, tends to spread. The morning after the fire, the kingdom woke slowly. Ash still clung to the streets like a bad memory. Torches lay abandoned where anger had slipped from tired hands. Windows opened cautiously, as if the city itself wasn't sure whether it was safe to look outside yet. Nothing had burned. That, more than anything, felt miraculous. The people had expected punishment. They had expected soldiers, arrests, lists of names. History had taught them that fear always came back sharper after being challenged. But the palace gates stayed open, and the queen did not retreat. She walked through the city that day. No crown, no armor, no soldiers flanking her side. Only the young prince beside her, small hand resting in hers. The streets went silent as they passed, not with terror but with disbelief. This was not how rulers survived rebellions. This was how they died. Or so everyone believed. The queen stopped in the central square, where scorch marks still darkened the stone. People gathered slowly, forming a wide circle. No one spoke. No one shouted. They waited. She looked tired. But there was something else there now. Openness. "I will not punish you," she said. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I understand why you were afraid," she continued. "Fear has been the language of this kingdom for a long time. I spoke it too." Her voice wavered, but she did not stop. "I thought fear would keep us safe. I thought it would make us strong." She glanced down at the prince. "I was wrong." The word felt heavier than any decree. "I cannot promise that things will be easy," she said, "or that I will never fail you again. But I will no longer rule alone, or above you." She took a breath. "I will rule with you." Silence followed. Then someone bowed. Then another. Not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. Change did not come all at once. Never does. Trust, unlike fear, moves slowly. Questions. It remembers. But it grows. Councils were opened to village leaders. Laws were explained, not enforced blindly. When food ran short, the palace rationed itself first. People noticed. They remembered. The prince returned to being a child, mostly. He scraped his knees. He lost at games. He laughed more. But people looked at him differently now. Not as a symbol, as a reminder. He didn't like that part. He liked it best when the queen spoke to him quietly, away from eyes and whispers. "Did I do the right thing?" she asked him one evening. He shrugged. "I think doing the right thing feels scary," he said. "Otherwise, it's just easy." She smiled. Really smiled. For the first time the kingdom saw it. Years passed. The queen grew older. So did the prince. Fear never vanished entirely. It never does, but it no longer ruled. When hardship came, the people spoke instead of shouting. When mistakes were made, they were named. When anger rose, it was met with listening before force. And the story spread. Not of a terrifying queen, but of a child who stood unafraid. On the day the prince came of age, he stood on the same balcony where he had once shouted into fire. The crowd below waited, not with torches but with hope. The queen stood beside him, no longer alone. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Courage," he said, "is not the absence of fear." He looked out over the people who had once wanted blood. It's choosing not to let fear decide who we become. The kingdom listened, because they had lived the truth of it. Long after the queen's reign ended, long after the prince wore the crown himself, people still told the story. Not as legend, but as memory. The day fear turned into fire, and was answered by courage. And the day a young prince changed a kingdom, simply by refusing to be afraid.